I am Ivy, a 28-year-old woman residing in a small seaside town where life seems to hold few mysteries. Here, everyone is privy to each other's affairs, from morning routines to the minutiae of personal lives. This town is akin to a tight-knit community where camaraderie and connections are deeply valued. For me, I have one closest confidant, and that is Brittany. We matured together from our college days into adulthood. Brittany has always been someone I trusted implicitly. She's 30 years old, 2 years my senior, but she has always possessed a tranquility and wisdom that I could never match. We have shared our joys, our sorrows, our setbacks, and our triumphs. It seemed that nothing could fracture our bond. She was the one I could confide in and share everything in life with, and I was also the sole person Brittany trusted completely. But then I never anticipated that I would be the one to shatter it all. I never expected that a fleeting moment could alter everything forever, and I also never expected that I, the friend she had trusted her entire life, would cause our friendship to crumble into irreparable pieces. It all began when I encountered Raghav, Brittany's husband. He is a 45-year-old man, mature, prosperous, and refined. Every time he entered a room, the ambience seemed altered. He possessed a natural allure that no one could deny. Raghav always made those around him feel secure, as if he was the one who could resolve any issue, large or small. The way he smiled, the way he spoke, everything radiated a serenity, trust, and assurance that I had never witnessed in anyone else. Initially, I didn't ponder much about him. I merely saw him as a mature, dependable man and the spouse of my closest friend. I respected Brittany's choice, and for me, Raghav was just a part of her domestic life. But as we began conversing more, as he shared his work, his business travels, his life anecdotes, I started to realize that he was unlike anyone I had ever met. I couldn't deny that his proximity made me feel at ease. When he discussed significant matters, his life aspirations, I found myself captivated by his narrative. Raghav was not the boisterous type. He listened and never passed judgment. Sometimes I pondered if it was his patience and composed demeanor that created a unique allure that I couldn't resist. I don't know if it was due to his concern or something else, but every time he gazed at me, I felt like I was the most significant person in the room. Those moments, however fleeting, left me feeling bewildered, as if there was an inexplicable connection between us. One tranquil evening when Brittany was away, Raghav and I had an opportunity to sit and converse alone. The house was just the two of us, and the atmosphere was more serene than ever. Our casual chats gradually shifted to profound topics, inquiries about life, about aspirations, about matters that I felt I could only share naturally when I was with him. Raghav looked at me with his gaze fixed on me, and I felt his special regard. Then he uttered something that I will never forget. "Ivy, you are truly exceptional. There are times when I look at you and feel like the entire world is just the two of us. You make me feel less solitary in a world brimming with complexities." His words made my heart flutter. They were not hollow phrases, but sincere expressions filled with care that I had not realized I needed until then. I didn't know how to handle the emotions surging within me. It was peculiar to feel like I had suddenly become significant to him. I felt like I was teetering on the brink of a precipice with no escape, but I couldn't halt. I knew that if I persisted, everything would soon be shattered. Friendships, emotions, everything would vanish. Everything would be ruined. But in that moment, I couldn't retreat. His words, his gaze, the sensation of being noticed rendered me incapable of doing anything but allowing myself to be drawn deeper into this illicit bond, even though I knew I was treading a perilous path. At that moment, I couldn't resist, and so I let myself be ensnared, even though I knew things would never be the same again. Raghav and I were entangled in a liaison that endured for months. Every encounter, every exchanged glance or shared intimate moment was a time for me to conceal. I couldn't help but feel that everything was cornering me, a place I couldn't escape from. Everything had to be concealed. Our meetings had to be meticulously planned, times when Brittany wasn't present, locations unknown to many. Every time I looked into her eyes, I wondered if anyone could detect the subtle shift in my gaze, If anyone could notice the discomfort in the smile I tried to uphold. Every time she questioned me and I continued to see Brittany laughing, behaving joyfully as if everything was normal. I still attempted to engage in personal conversations between us and feign that nothing was amiss, but internally I always harbored a sense of guilt burdening my every move. When I strolled down the street with her, when we sat for coffee together, I felt like a deceiver. I knew that while I was enjoying and jesting with her publicly, I was betraying Brittany's trust, betraying the friendship we had cultivated over the years. Every night alone in my room, I couldn't help but ponder how things would conclude. Would Brittany discover the truth? Would I be able to endure her look of disappointment when she found out? The burden of guilt weighed heavily on my chest daily, but no matter what I contemplated, I couldn't cease. Every time I met Rugov, all my logic, all my intentions of stopping were erased by the intimate moments and the words he spoke, and so I continued to sink deeper into a wrongful, dead-end affair. While outwardly, I remained a sincere, joyful, unaltered friend. I knew I was deceiving her, but when I faced Rugov, when he looked at me with eyes brimming with concern, I couldn't let go. I didn't know how to halt, and I could not fathom the day when it would all be exposed, when these secrets would no longer be shadows, but the agonizing truth that I would have to confront. Until one day, when everything detonated, Brittany discovered the truth, not through my confession, but via a message she chanced upon on Rugov's phone. I will never forget that instant. She grasped the phone, her expression unaltered, and in that moment, time seemed to stand still. The atmosphere in the room grew dense. When she raised her eyes to meet mine, I no longer recognized the dear friend I once knew. Her stare at that moment was not the fury I had braced for. It was not the rebuke, the probing questions. No, her gaze was simply disillusionment, a profound disappointment I had never witnessed before. Each time she looked at me, I felt a piercing pain in my heart. She didn't need to utter another word. That look was enough for me to comprehend the irreparable harm I had inflicted. Brittany stood there, silent for what felt like an eternity, but in my heart, time had frozen. I could sense the heavy air enveloping us. After what seemed like ages, she finally spoke, but could only manage a simple sentence that will forever echo in my mind. Why, Ivy, why did you do that? That query was not just for me, but also for myself to ponder. How could I respond when I myself couldn't fathom why I did it?
How?
Could I confront the reality I had forged in Brittany's eyes? I saw only anguish and disappointment. She required no further clarifications or justifications. She only needed to acknowledge that the person she trusted most, the best friend she had always regarded as a sister, was the one who had callously deceived her. And in that moment, I understood one thing. I no longer merited her presence. The bond we had nurtured over the years was shattered beyond repair. The disenchantment in Brittany's eyes made me feel like an outsider, no longer worthy of her company, no longer deserving to be called her friend. I knew I had forfeited everything. Any apology, any explanation was futile at this point. I could no longer rectify what I had demolished. At that moment, I realized I had squandered everything. My bond with Brittany, the friendship we had cultivated over the years, was ruptured due to a foolish choice I made. What I had believed was enduring and indestructible was now obliterated in an instant. I had lost a friendship. I had wounded the friend I cherished most, and now I had to confront the immutable truth. Nothing could be salvaged anymore. Everything in town began to shift. No one spoke a word, but I could sense the estrangement from everyone. Each time I encountered someone, each time I met their gaze, I didn't need to hear the words, because their looks said it all. They regarded me not with compassion, but with deep scorn. I could perceive the resentment in their eyes, not solely because I had betrayed Brittany, but also because I had violated the principles that everyone in this town held sacred, and that sense of being shunned by society, of being ostracized, was unbearable. Daily interactions, ordinary conversations with neighbors were now strained. Everyone treated me like a stranger, someone they no longer wished to know. No one approached, no one inquired, no one shared anymore. I was isolated not only by Brittany, but also by the community I had once been a part of. I felt like I was inhabiting a world where everything had turned against me. No matter how hard I tried to smile, no matter how much I clung to hope, I couldn't escape the guilt and solitude. I had lost so much, and now I was alone, facing the repercussions of my actions. I sought Brittany, pleading for her pardon. I knew my apology was merely hollow words, but I had to express it. I had to do something even though it was too late. I found her in our home where we had shared countless memories and laughter, but now the ambience between us was altered, frigid and oppressive. I rapped on the door, my heart racing, and each step closer to her felt like a penitence journey from which there was no return. When she opened the door, I couldn't help but notice the transformation in Brittany's eyes. It was not the familiar gaze of the best friend I had known. There was no longer warmth or forgiveness, only emptiness and concealed pain. She didn't look at me with anger or irritation, but only silence, as if she were weary of it all. I opened my mouth, but the words of apology caught in my throat. Brittany, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you deeply, but I truly regret it. I don't know what to do to make amends. I just hope you can forgive me. But those words were like a fleeting breeze, unable to bridge the chasm between us. Brittany remained silent for a long while. She just stood there, her eyes never leaving me, but there was nothing in her gaze but weariness and despair. Then finally, she spoke softly but painfully. I don't want to hear any more, Ivy. There's nothing left to say. Those words were like a dagger to my heart. Brittany didn't want to hear any more clarifications, didn't want to hear any more expressions of regret. She was no longer the companion I once knew. Brittany was gone within me, not physically, but in camaraderie. Our bond perished in that instant as she gazed at me with boundless dismay. No more joy, no more secrets shared. We two closest companions had utterly lost one another. I understood there was nothing I could do to salvage it. It was too late. She no longer desired my presence in her life, and I knew that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't alter that reality. After the revelation, Rugov abandoned both of us. He didn't utter a word, didn't provide a clarification, not a single syllable. My entire world crumbled in silence. He, the one I believed was my redemption, the one I had given all my heart and faith to, turned his back on me so coldly. He didn't need me anymore, didn't need to explain, just departed, leaving me alone in the irreparable wreckage. There was no encounter to resolve, no farewell. He simply left as if nothing had transpired, as if we had never shared those moments together. I couldn't comprehend why it was me, the one who had given all my heart to him, who was being treated this way. He left me in profound solitude, long sleepless nights, thoughts whirling in my mind. I could only confront the anguish and remorse alone. Everything had transformed so swiftly, so abruptly. The apologies I had offered to Brittany, the tears I had shed, all became futile when he left. He had not only abandoned Brittany, but also left me in a frigid world where there was no one to share this pain with. And then I realized I had lost everything. The connection with Brittany, the friendship I once treasured, was now beyond repair. I had lost my closest friend, and now the man I thought would stand by me. I was left alone with everything I had lost, irrevocably lost. I didn't know what to do, how to emerge from this devastation. The loneliness not only burdened me physically, but also entombed all the hopes, all the dreams I had. Brittany's stare, Rugov's coldness, all of it swirled in my head, and I could only reflect in the darkness of regret and ponder if I could ever forgive myself. Now I resided in a small town where everyone knew my tale. Every day I felt their stares, even though they didn't voice it. The looks of familiar people now turned strangers, cold gazes filled with scorn and estrangement. I didn't need to hear them, because just one look was enough for me to grasp. I had become an outsider in the place where I grew up. Daily encounters and conversations became strained. No one wanted to approach me. No one wanted to engage with me anymore. They didn't need to condemn me aloud because I knew what they thought of me, and there was nothing I could do to change that. My past, the errors I've made, are now irreparable. Every day I must face the repercussions of my deeds, and I feel like I can't escape the shadow of regret and remorse. Every step, every word reminds me of what I've lost. I know I have no chance of turning back. Brittany, the closest friend I betrayed, no longer wishes to see me. Rugov, the man I loved, has left me without explanation. All that remains is a stigma, a person everyone in this town views with contempt. Sometimes I ponder if I'll ever rediscover myself after all that's occurred. Will I be able to pardon myself one day and move forward? But every time I contemplate it, I feel a void, a wound that nothing can mend, because one thing I am certain of is no matter how many times I apologize, no matter what I do to atone for my blunders, I cannot mend the wound that I have inflicted. What I have done, the harm I have caused to Brittany and to myself, cannot be erased with mere apologies. Through this narrative, I want you to question yourself. Do we possess enough bravery to confront the mistakes in life? Have you ever considered the aftermath of impulsive decisions, wrong choices that can demolish everything we have constructed? I have paid an exceedingly high price for my disloyalty, and no matter how many times I apologize, I still cannot alter what transpired. I know I can't rectify everything. I can't erase the wounds I've inflicted. So the query is, what can we glean from these failures? Can we be more vigilant, ponder more carefully before choosing to do something that can injure those around us? I want to hear your insights. What would you do if you were in the same predicament as me? Please share your thoughts by commenting below the video. Thank you for watching my account, and I hope you will derive something for yourself from my errors.